Good morning, Ms. Roberts. How are you?
Good morning.
Under questioning by Mr. Brennan, you talked about the number of times or a number of times that you have spoken to the DA's office or some member of the DA's office. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about that.
Sure.
How many times in total do you think you've spoken to a representative of the district attorney's office?
I don't have a number.
Would you say it's more than a dozen?
Yes.
Would you say it's more than 50?
Maybe around there.
Okay.
Maybe less.
And who are the folks, Ms. Roberts, that you have spoken to at the DA's office?
Steve Nelson,
Okay.
the victim advocate, Yuri Buchanan, who's a state police officer, and the DA, Michael Morrissey.
And what was the, I want to take those in order, and two of those are at the DA's office. One of those is not. Yuri Buchanan is not at the DA's office. He's actually a Massachusetts state police officer. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's take those in order. How many times would you say you've spoken to Mr. Nelson? Just if you can give me a thumbnail.
I don't know, maybe 30, 40.
Okay. Have you received what you would consider to be updates on the progress of the case? From Mr. Nelson?
I would ask questions, and he would give me very broad answers.
Okay. Were your questions ever prompted by conversations that you had with your friend, Miss McCabe, Jen McCabe?
Sometimes Jen would say, could you ask Steve this, because I had a rapport with Steve.
Okay. Were those conversations by text message or phone calls or both?
I would usually text him.
Okay. What about the conversation with, or conversations with Mr. Morrissey, the elected district attorney? What were the circumstances under which you contacted Mr. Morrissey?
Well, during the course of this trial, the witnesses have been harassed.
That's not my question.
Objection.
But I'm answering your question.
Hold on. I'm going to sustain the objection. Next question.
Thank you. Were you phoning him? Were you meeting him? Were you texting him? That's my question. The circumstances of the communication itself.
I phoned the office asking for a meeting, had a meeting, and then he left a voicemail at some point and texted me and said, I just left you a voicemail.
Okay. Was that the extent of your conversations with Mr. Morrissey, the elected DA?
I had one other meeting with other witnesses and the DA.
And turning to Yuri Buchanan, what were the logistics? I'll use that word instead of circumstances. What were the logistics of you contacting Yuri Buchanan? Was it by phone? Was it in-person meetings, text messages, or all of the above? All of the above.
All of the above.
How many times would you say that you've spoken with Yuri Buchanan?
Spoken or communicated?
Sorry, good point. Communicated with?
Probably 20.
Okay. When was the last time? Actually, let me ask you a different question. Have you ever met with Mr. Brennan before your testimony today?
Yes.
What was the circumstance of that meeting?
Going over my testimony from the last trial.
Okay.
And sort of just asking questions on what might come this time. Would I be cross-examined? I wasn't last time. Just sort of, all the things went through my testimony.
Okay. When was that meeting?
I don't know, in the last couple of weeks. I don't know.
Okay. Where was the meeting?
At the DA's office.
Who else was there?
Different times that I would meet with him, Steve Nelson would be there. One time, Brian Tully was there. Mr. Brennan's assistant.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Brennan's assistant.
Okay.
I don't know. Adam Lally and Laura McLaughlin.
Were those meetings, you said there was 2 meetings? Or did I misunderstand you?
Yeah, I think there were 2.
Okay. Were those close in time to one another? You mentioned 2 weeks ago. Were those both 2 weeks?
I said a few weeks ago, but the other meeting was just before I was going to testify.
Meaning, what, yesterday, the day before?
Last week.
Was that also at the DA's office?
Yes, it was.
Were you shown anything at that meeting?
Was I shown anything?
Videos, testimony, transcripts?
No.
Reports?
No.
Nothing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We went over my testimony on the screen, and then I just talked about my testimony from the last time.
Okay. When you say you went over your testimony on screen, what do you mean?
We watched my testimony from the first trial on a TV screen.
Okay, so you were shown something. You were shown a video of your prior testimony.
Yes.
So I'd like to see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please.
You are
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Other than watching your testimony, were you shown anything else? Transcripts, videos, like videos that you may have seen today, dash cam videos, anything like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think I was shown anything.
Okay. Did you discuss other parts of your prior testimony?
Yes.
Okay. What was discussed concerning your prior testimony and how it would impact how you testified today on direct examination?
Mr. Brennan had just asked me, can you just tell me what happened? So I told him the story verbally.
Okay. Anything come up about specific instances of how you were going to testify today?
No.
Or yesterday?
No.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit, Ms. Roberts, about the video that you were shown by Mr. Brennan. It's the dash cam video of Officer Seraph. I'm not sure if you know which officer that is.
No, I don't.
It's the one that you've been watching.
Okay.
That dash cam that shows your car in the foreground.
Yep.
I'd like to ask you a couple of quick questions about your memory of that incident and then perhaps show you the video depending upon what the answer is.
Sure.
Do you remember when the officer first arrived, you and Miss Reed specifically were at Mr. O'Keefe's body?
Yes.
Where was Miss McCabe at that moment?
She was there too, but she was waving down the first responders because it was dark out and he couldn't see us. He had a spotlight.
You and Miss Reed were both providing some level of CPR, some level of life-saving efforts.
Yes, as was Miss McCabe.
What was Miss McCabe doing?
When I was doing chest compressions and Karen was doing mouth-to-mouth, Jen was either on the phone with 911 or handing me baby blankets.
Okay.
At some point, she did take over doing chest compressions because I asked her to.
Okay. So Miss Reed was focused on Mr. O'Keefe's head, face area.
Correct.
You were focused on the chest.
Correct.
Miss McCabe was, at some point at least, she had called 911 or dialed 911.
Yes.
When Miss McCabe dialed 911 and was on the phone with 911, isn't it true that she was actually in a vehicle at the time?
That is not true.
She was outside?
She was outside.
That's your memory?
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard the 911 tape of that call?
Yes.
Okay. You're aware that that tape was also captured by an open line on Miss Reed's phone?
Yes.
That open line that phone was dropped inside the cab of an SUV?
It was in the back seat, I believe.
Right. So in order for that for that open line to capture sort of the background of Miss McCabe's side of the 911 call, Miss
Yep.
McCabe would have had to have been either at or in the cab of the truck?
The back of the SUV was open. She was standing there.
Got it. Okay, so she was right next to or adjacent to the cab of the SUV.
She was in back of it with the back was up.
I see, that back hatch?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember Miss Reed's statement, her initial statement to Officer Seraph when he got out of his patrol?
I do
car?
not.
Do you remember her saying something to the effect of, "My boyfriend, I left him, he never came home"?
I do not.
Okay. Have you listened with audio to that dash cam at the moment that Officer Seraph arrives at the scene and y'all flag him down?
We just watched it.
Right. Have you listened to it for the audio side? I mean, in other words, instead of focusing on the
no.
video.
No.
Okay. I'd like to ask you to do that with the court's permission. This is it's been previously marked as Exhibit 4. And with the court's permission, I'd like to play that from runtime about 3:50 and ask the witness to concentrate most readily at about 4:07, maybe
Okay.
10 seconds into it. I'm going to give a little run up and then ask you to listen very
Okay.
closely to the audio.
Yep.
With the court's permission?
Yes.
Okay, Evan. Stop. Do you recognize the video as being the same video that you saw and you looked at on direct examination?
Yes.
Okay. In just a quick second, the door to the car, you're going to hear it open. I'd like to ask you to pay special attention to the audio portion and Miss Reed's voice,
Okay.
if you can hear it. Go ahead. Stop. Did you hear that last statement?
No.
Did you hear a woman's voice kind of faint in the background?
I heard a voice, but I didn't make out what she was saying.
Okay. Did it sound like she said, "My boyfriend, I dropped him off and he never came home"?
Objection.
Could you hear that, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Okay.
Next question.
That's all I have for the video. We can take that down. You talked about, on direct examination, some of the injuries that you saw Mr. O'Keefe having suffered, both what you observed at the scene and then what you observed later at the hospital.
Yep.
And you noted those injuries, correct?
Say it again?
You noted those injuries. Those were
Yes.
You made note of those,
Yes.
or at least some of them. You said that you saw a hematoma of some sort over his right eye. Is that right?
Correct.
And there was some significant swelling to his right eye
Correct.
at the scene.
Correct.
Did you also notice a laceration just above his right eye, just under the eyebrow?
I saw it at the hospital, but I
Okay.
don't know if at the scene I saw it.
Fair enough. At some point, you saw that laceration to his right eye?
Yes, I did.
Did you also see a laceration to the left side of his nose, a smaller laceration to the left side of his nose?
I don't recall. I know there was blood coming from here, but I don't know if it was coming from inside his nose or from a laceration. I don't know.
When you said here, you're pointing to the left side of your nostril.
Yes.
And basically just above the nostril, correct?
Yes, right around the nostril, there was blood coming this way.
Okay, draining to the left side of his cheek?
Yes.
Okay. You also saw, once you got to the hospital, that his left eye had swollen as well.
Now, both eyes were swollen and filled with what looked like blood.
And his left eye was black as well as his right eye?
Correct.
Okay. You also indicated that you saw, well, actually, I don't know if you did or not, so I don't want to put words in your mouth. I apologize. Did you see his right arm?
I did.
Did it appear to you that he had some abrasions or lacerations, parallel abrasions and lacerations and punctures on his right arm?
They were scratches.
Scratches. Ms. Roberts, you've previously testified that when you arrived, let me take you back instead of jumping right into it. After you met up with Ms. Reed at Jen McCabe's house that morning, so this is just after 5 o'clock or so, the three of you arrived back at One Meadows, correct? Is that right? I'm sorry.
Correct.
Okay. You're trailing the Lexus SUV, correct?
Correct.
The Lexus pulls in to the driveway and you pull in directly behind Ms. Reed and Jennifer McCabe is driving.
Correct.
You're driving your SUV, correct?
Correct.
You've previously testified that when you arrived at One Meadows at that moment, that once that SUV, the Lexus SUV, had pulled in and you pulled in behind the Lexus, you got out of the Lexus, you got out of your SUV, they got out of the Lexus, and that's a point at which Karen showed you the back of her taillight and said something to the effect of, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you think I hit him? Do you recall that?
I recall saying I didn't know if it was when we were coming or going, but she did point out the taillight.
Okay. When you previously testified under oath, your quote was, quote, Karen pulls in and I pull in behind her.
Mr. Jackson.
Give page and line numbers when
Yes.
offering statements.
Sure. It's the SGJ, the grand jury, page 58, lines 14 through 19 for court and counsel.
Thank you.
Did you testify, quote, Karen pulls in and I pull in behind her, period. When we get out, and Karen is now showing us the back of the car saying, my taillight, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you guys think I hit him? Question mark. End quote. Is that how you testified?
May I see it?
Sure. I apologize, I've already got it up here.
Does it have a date on it, Mr. Jackson?
It does. (4/26/22). May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Do you have the pages after this?
I'm sure I do.
Because in the pages after this, I say,
My question, Ms. Roberts, is that a quote that I just said, is that accurate? Do you see it in the?
yes, it is.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
One more time.
Thank you.
Just for reference, I'm going to show you both pages. That's the page I asked you to look at, and then the following page as well. Please take your time.
Okay.
May I?
What I'm looking for is still not here, because I did say I wasn't sure if it was
Yes.
before or after.
Ms. Roberts, you do have to wait for a question.
Okay.
When you gave this testimony, you were in front of a grand jury, correct?
I'm not sure which one that is.
Do you remember testifying in front of a grand jury on April 26th, 2022?
Yes.
Okay, about 2 years ago.
Yes.
Sorry, 3 years ago. You were under oath at the time. Is that right?
Yes.
Things were fresher in your mind at that time than they are now, 3.5 years later, I'm guessing. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. You were asked the question to describe the circumstance when you arrived at One Meadows. Is that right?
Yes.
And the answer that you gave was, quote, we pulled into it's a driveway, there's 2 cars, and then 2 cars, then a single, so John's car is there. Karen pulls in, and I pull in behind her. When we get out, and Karen is now showing us the back of the back of the car, saying, my taillight, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you guys think I hit him? That was your testimony at the time, correct?
Yes.
And just to be clear, I'd like to take a look at a quick video that you may or may not have seen before. We'll find out. Your Honor, I'd like to have this. Actually, this has already been previously marked as Exhibit 12C as in Charlie,
Okay.
and it's a short clip. So I'll play the entire clip with the court's permission.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and take a look at that video. Can you pause? Do you recognize what's depicted in the video?
Yeah, that's when we arrived at John's house.
Okay. And who's the person with the plaid red pants?
That is Jen.
And who's the person that's just rounding the back of the car in front?
That is Karen.
What is the car in front?
That's Karen's SUV.
That's the Lexus SUV.
Yes, it is.
Behind that Lexus SUV, Ms. Roberts, is there another car?
That's my car.
And who's getting out of that car?
I am.
Okay. And this is the point that you were describing in your, at least in the grand jury testimony at that time.
Yes.
This is the time that you're describing.
That I thought it was when we walked in.
This is the time that you were describing, right? When you arrive at the scene.
Yes.
Or, arrive at One Meadows.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and play this through. Okay. You can stop it. And you can bring the lights up. You saw the interaction between all 3 of you and the vehicles, correct?
Yep.
At any point, did anybody stop and take a look at the tail light or the rear end of the car?
Not when we were entering the house like I thought, but when we came out.
Okay. And there's no video of that?
I'm sorry?
There's no video of that?
No, I don't believe so.
Right. So the video that does exist describes nearly exactly the time that you testified that y'all stopped at the back of the taillight and Karen said, look, my taillight's broken. Oh my God, do you think I hit him?
Correct.
Okay. And that obviously was incorrect.
It was incorrect.
So your memory was faulty about that incident, that part of that incident at least.
It happened on the way out of the house.
So your memory was faulty about that part of the incident that you testified to at the grand jury.
Yes.
Okay. You were interviewed on January 29th. You've already testified to that, correct? By
Yes.
Troopers Dunn and My memory's failing me now.
There were two. I don't know who they were.
Okay. I'm sure it's in my notes somewhere. Two individuals that interviewed you on January 29th, correct?
Yes.
Obviously, things were very, very fresh in your mind at that point.
Yes, but I believe I was in shock. So,
The incident had just happened.
yes.
Okay. And you were asked to recount certain of the specifics about the incident that you had just experienced, not days or weeks, but just hours before, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you did your best, I'm sure, Ms. Roberts, to be as full-throated as possible, to provide them with as much detailed information as you could, and to be as honest as you could.
Yes.
I mean, you weren't going to lie to these police officers, right?
No.
In your very first conversation with those two troopers on January 29th, you didn't mention anything about a taillight or a cracked taillight, or
No,
you
I
haven't
did not.
seen a cracked taillight, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I
You
didn't
then-
want to accuse anybody of anything.
You were then interviewed on February 1st, 2022, a few days later, correct?
I don't know.
Does that
I
sound
don't know
right?
the exact date. I was interviewed again, but I don't know the exact date.
Okay. During your interview, let me withdraw that and ask a different question. On February 1st, or whatever day it was, the subsequent time that you were interviewed just a few days later, you did then, for the first time, describe the taillight that you saw, correct?
I don't know.
Would it refresh your recollection if you looked at a report?
Yes, please.
Okay. If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm handing you a 2-page report, Ms. Roberts. I've put a little dot on the second page just to direct your attention to the discussion related to the taillight, if you want to take a look at that.
Okay.
Okay. May I?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection that you were interviewed on February 1st, 2022 by a trooper by the name of Connor Keefe and a trooper by the name of Kathleen Prince?
Yes. Did Connor Keefe write that report?
I'm sorry?
Did Connor Keefe write that report?
Trooper Kathleen Prince wrote the report.
Okay.
Does that matter? No?
Nope.
Okay. Does that refresh your recollection that you did discuss the taillight at that time?
Yes.
And did you tell Trooper Prince and Trooper Keefe that you noticed the back right taillight in the middle, quote, in the middle, your words, was broken and a piece of the metal encasement was pushed forward?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't say that the taillight was completely shattered, correct?
Correct.
You didn't say that the entire lens was missing, correct?
Correct.
You said it was broken in the middle. Is that
Yes.
right? And then you described today that a square piece was missing.
Yes. That's the piece I was referring to in the middle.
Just in the middle of the taillight, though. That was how you described it.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to shift gears for a quick second and talk about a March 7th, 2023 text message with victim witness advocate Steve Nelson. Do you remember communicating? You don't have to know the exact date, but if you do, fine. Do you remember communicating in March of 2023 with victim witness advocate Steve Nelson about the Ring camera at One Meadows?
I don't know the exact date, but yes.
Okay. Is it true that you contacted him to inform him that the O'Keeffes needed to replace or wanted to replace the driveway Ring camera, that same Ring camera that we just literally saw through that perspective
Yes.
of you arriving?
Yes.
Did Mr. Nelson indicate that he believed that would be fine to replace that Ring camera if the O'Keeffes wished to do that?
I don't remember if he said it would be fine, but at some point they were told they could replace it. It had broken. It wasn't working.
Did he indicate that he would check with DDA Adam Lally and then get back to you?
I don't know.
At some point, you were informed that the O'Keeffes had the green light or the go-ahead to replace that Ring camera at One Meadows. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then ultimately you then relayed that to the O'Keeffes that they have the green light. You've talked to somebody at the DA's office and they said, yeah, go ahead and replace the camera, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever receive any kind of response from the DA's office either before or after you relayed this information to the O'Keeffes to say, wait, hold on, we need to do a reconstruction, we need to make sure that the camera is in the exact same spot that it was at the time of the incident?
No.
Any communication like that?
No.
So the communication that you got was, yep, go ahead and replace it, it's no big deal.
Correct.
Okay. And ultimately, you learned that the O'Keeffes did, in fact, replace that Ring camera.
Correct.
You have already described your relationship, at least in part, with Canton Police Officer Sergeant Michael Lank, correct?
Yes.
He is friends with you?
His daughter is friends with my daughter.
Your friend Lee with the family?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware that he's also friends with the Albert family?
No. Well, no.
Were you aware that Michael Lank grew up with Chris Albert?
I was not.
Have you ever been in a social setting with both the Lanks and the Alberts?
No.
You're aware, obviously, you were at the scene. He was the first officer to respond to the crime scene at 34 Fairview on January 29th after Officer Seraph and after Mulaney arrived. Correct? Then it was Sergeant Lank.
I don't know which order. I did see Sergeant Lank there, yes.
Was he the, excuse me a second. I was just reminded, you indicated that you don't remember the date of that text communication between yourself and Mr. Nelson.
No, I don't remember the date.
Would it refresh your recollection if you looked at a text message between the two of you about the subject of the Ring camera?
Sure.
Okay.
Do I need to know the date?
May I approach? I need to know the date.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is it March 7th, 2023?
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. You indicated that you did recognize Sergeant Lank at the scene.
Yes, I did.
You had a conversation with him.
No. I said, Mike, is that you? He said yes, and that was it.
All right. Following that, the next day, you did go to his house. You've already described that.
I did.
You indicated that you went to his house to drop off your daughter for a play date. Is that right?
Yes.
But you also indicated that you took Jennifer McCabe with you.
Yes, because I drove Jen McCabe to the O'Keeffe's house, so she was leaving to go home with me. So I was going to drop her off.
Okay, so your memory is You took Miss McCabe from where over to the Lanks house?
I think she was at home.
So you picked her up
Yes.
at her house?
Yes.
With anybody else?
With my daughter, my son. I picked up her and either one or two of her daughters, I don't remember.
And then you drove over to the Lanks house, is that right?
No, I drove to the O'Keefe's house.
First.
Yes.
And what did you do with the O'Keefe's
Then
house?
left a couple of kids, and my daughter wanted to go to the Lanks house, so I drove my daughter to the Lanks house before driving home.
And Jen's child was with you on the way from Jen's house over to the O'Keefe's house?
Yes, one or two daughters, I don't know,
Dropped the one or two kids off at the O'Keefe's, is that right?
as well as my son.
As well as your son. Then you went to drop off your daughter for the play date.
Well, she was 13, so it wasn't a play date.
Whatever, I don't know what you call it.
I know.
I don't have a 13-year-old. What a date, whatever it is.
So she went over to her friend's house, yes.
Okay. But you took Jennifer McCabe with you
Yes, because I was driving her home.
back to her house without her kids?
Yes, she was going home.
Were you going to go back to the O'Keefe's and pick up her kids and then take all of them home?
I didn't have a plan. I mean, Patrick,
Okay.
nephew, is my son's best friend.
Got it.
So he wanted to be with him.
Okay. Did you, I think you just answered this, but I want to make sure I'm clear about it. You didn't take separate cars. You all went in the same car, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Did anybody stop by or go by 34 Fairview during that roundabout?
No,
Nobody stopped off at 34 Fairview either on the way or on the way back?
no.
Okay.
I don't believe so. That wouldn't be the route in which to get to my house.
Right, exactly. You indicated that you stayed, even though you were dropping off your daughter, y'all stayed, you and Miss McCabe stayed at Sergeant Lank's house for some 45 minutes. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
And Sergeant Lank's wife, you indicated, was in the back seat of your car?
Yes.
Did y'all ever go inside the house?
Jen went in to go to the bathroom.
Was Sergeant Lank there?
I don't know. I didn't go in.
You didn't have any communications with Sergeant Lank?
I'm sorry?
You didn't have any communications with Sergeant Lank himself, Mike Lank, on that trip?
No, I did not.
But you don't know whether or not Jen did?
I don't know whether or not Jen did. She went in the house to go to the bathroom.
Okay. You've indicated that there have been occurrences in which Jennifer McCabe has asked you to contact the DA's office on her behalf to ask a question here or there, get some information, correct?
To Steve Nelson, yes.
Okay. How many times, just a number of times, the volume, would you say that Ms. McCabe has asked you to reach out to the DA's office in one particular or another on her behalf?
I don't think very many.
What does that mean? Of the 50 times that you've had
No,
communications?
maybe like 4. Not many, to my knowledge.
When you would, on these 4 occasions or 4 or so occasions, when you would reach out to the DA's office, gather information, whatever that information may be, would you then report that information back to Ms. McCabe?
Yes.
Okay. You obviously understand the importance of providing statements to law enforcement that are free of influence of other people, other witnesses. Is that right?
Say it again?
You understand the importance of providing information to law enforcement as a witness to law enforcement free of influence from other people.
Yeah.
In other words, you want to be as accurate and as independent as possible.
Yes.
And that's because if your statement is somehow, or if your communications with law enforcement are somehow influenced by others, it might call into question the credibility of the person providing the statement.
Objection.
Can you answer that question, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Okay, next question.
Sure. A statement that's been colored by influence from someone else would lack credibility, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
I want to talk about the statements in the prior testimony that you have provided in this case, Ms. Roberts. There's been several of them. The first time you told your story to law enforcement was on January 29th. We've already established that, correct?
Say that again?
It was on January 29th, the first time you relayed your story to law enforcement.
Yes.
And that was to Trooper Dunn and Trooper DeChico. That's the name I couldn't remember.
I don't remember.
But you do remember Trooper Dunn.
I remember 2 troopers. I don't know their name.
Okay. Where did that interview take place?
In my dining room.
And who was with you when you gave that interview, if anybody?
My husband was home. I think my daughter was home at that point. My husband was home. I don't know if the kids were home.
Nobody else from outside the family?
No.
Okay. Who contacted you about doing that interview? How did they know to come to you at your home?
I don't remember. They may have just shown up. I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember what time the interview was?
Maybe around dinner time, maybe around 5, 6.
Was it recorded?
I'm sorry?
Was it recorded in any way? Tape recorder running?
I don't think so.
The troopers were taking notes, obviously?
I believe so.
During your conversation with, and I'm jumping around a bit, so I apologize. During your conversation or conversations with Mr. Brennan and the members of the DA's office in preparation for your testimony, were any of those interviews recorded?
No.
Was anybody taking notes?
No.
No, none of the DAs were actually taking notes, the ADAs?
I didn't look around the table to see if anyone was taking notes, but I didn't see them taking notes.
No pads and pens on the table?
There was a lot of stuff on the table, but I didn't see anybody taking notes.
Okay. You received a phone call just before that interview started at 5:25 p.m., correct?
Around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Is this the night of the 29th, you mean?
This is the night of, I'm jumping back to the night of the 29th.
Yeah, I'm not following you very well.
That's okay. On the 29th,
Yeah.
when you were interviewed around 5:25 p.m., maybe just a little bit before that,
Yeah.
you received a phone call just before that, correct?
I do not know.
Isn't it true that Jen McCabe called you and spoke to you just before that?
I spoke to Jen McCabe the entire day.
Okay. Including just before that interview.
I don't know.
Did you tell Jen McCabe that you were about to be interviewed?
No.
Did you tell her at some point did you text her and tell her that the officers had arrived?
I don't think so.
Did she text you back and say, call me right after?
I don't know.
Okay. During the course of that interview, when the incident was still pretty fresh in your mind, you indicated that at about 5 a.m. you got a call from Karen Reed indicating that John never came home and that she was worried, correct?
Correct.
You also indicated that she was worried that John may be walking and may have gotten hit by a plow. You relayed that to the officers?
Yes.
You indicated that you met up with Karen Reed and Jennifer McCabe at Jennifer McCabe's house, and Karen was hysterical and worried that something had happened to John.
Yes.
You also indicated that once you were at 34 Fairview, once you all had made your way over to 34 Fairview, Karen saw John and ran to him, although you and Jennifer didn't see him initially, correct?
That's correct.
You said that Karen was repeating the phrase, is he dead, over and over. Is that right?
That is correct.
You also indicated that she said that if anything happened to John, she'd kill herself, correct?
That's what she said to me.
Object.
So the objection sustained.
Did you indicate at any time, I'm sorry, let me ask it a different way. Did either of the troopers indicate to you after your initial interview that if there was anything further that you could recall that would be useful, please provide it? Please give it to at that time.
I don't know.
Okay. Would it refresh your recollection to look at that January 29th report?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So on the second page of that report, January 29th, and there I put a little mark by paragraph 5. You could take a look at that.
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
During this interview with Trooper Dunn and Trooper DeChico, they indicated after you gave your statement that if you wish to provide anything additional, now is the time to do it.
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you informed that you were limited on time in that interview? Meaning, we got to get this done, we're leaving, we're out of time.
No.
They didn't cut you off, correct?
No.
They didn't tell you that they had a limited amount of information that they wanted and then they were just going to leave, correct?
I don't remember. I don't recall.
As a matter of fact, they told you that anything you wanted to provide to them, provide it. Give them as much detail as you could, correct?
I don't recall.
Okay. You just read the last statement that these troopers indicated, correct? If there's anything further she could recall that would be useful, please provide that information.
Object.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Having looked at the report,
No. Bring it to her and show it to her again.
she's just, it's the same thing that I just showed her. Having looked at the report, does that refresh your recollection about what Trooper Dunn and DeChico told you at the end of the interview?
I don't recall. It's not refreshing. I'm not remembering it. Even reading it, I'm not remembering it.
I see. Okay, fair enough. So as you sit here, the details about what you told or what those two officers told you are not fresh in your mind, and nothing's refreshing your recollection about that.
Right.
Okay. But you do remember the basics of what I just described in that conversation with those two troopers.
I mean, they asked me what happened. I told them, but I was also in shock.
You never said during the course of that interview that my client called you at 5 o'clock in the morning just hours earlier and said he's dead and then hung up, correct?
No, I don't believe I said it at that point. I did not remember that until a couple of days later.
I see. And in fact, when you were asked about that particular statement, when you asked about that particular series of events, that never came to your mind.
No.
That literally the first words out of Karen Reed's mouth, according to you now, is he's dead and then hung up.
Correct.
When you heard that, you didn't take that to mean that she killed him.
No.
Of course not. She was panicked, correct?
Yes.
You did add that, one other thing that you didn't add in your initial statement to Trooper Dunn and Trooper DeChico is anything about the taillight either, correct?
Not.
Okay. And you also didn't say anything about any sort of a Google search or the praying that you talked about in the back of the patrol car, anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't remember.
The second time you were interviewed, that was the February 1st interview. That was with Kathleen Prince and Connor Keith, correct? And you just looked at that report, at least part of that report. Is that right?
Say it again?
Connor Keith and Kathleen Prince, that was on February 1st, 3 days after your initial statement, correct?
I don't remember the date, but I remember meeting with them.
Okay. I want to make sure I get the dates down, so I'm sorry to belabor this, but... May I approach?
Yes.
Would it refresh your recollection if you were to look at the report of that interview?
It might.
Okay. First paragraph.
Thanks. Am I reading the whole thing or just the part where you dotted?
Just if it refreshes your recollection
Oh.
of the dates.
Oh, for the date, yes.
Mary Hook,
Yes.
what date was it that you met with me?
February 1st.
That second interview was conducted at 12 Country Lane, correct?
Yes.
And who again lives at 12 Country Lane?
Jennifer McCabe.
So the second time you told your memory, your story to law enforcement, you were literally sitting in Jennifer McCabe's house.
Yes.
And you had met with Jennifer McCabe before your interview, correct?
Yes. We were putting a timeline together.
So you two were actually prepping, if that's a valid term, prepping for your interview, putting a timeline together, correct?
We were putting a timeline together at the request of Mrs. O'Keefe.
And Jennifer McCabe, was helping you with the timeline, and you were helping her with the timeline.
Yes, we were putting together the events of what had happened.
So she was helping you, and you were helping her, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So both of you were assisting in each other's memories, correct?
Yes.
I remember this, and you remember this, and okay, now I remember this, correct?
Yep.
Obviously, that would help influence your memory, going
Yes.
over the event with someone else, correct?
Yep.
So what's on that timeline, you would agree, is not completely independent, your memory. It's a combination of your memory and Jennifer McCabe's memory. Isn't that right?
Yes.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the two of you drew out some sort of a timeline for you to follow during the course of that interview. Is that right?
For me to follow what?
During the course of that February 1st interview, as you were interviewed in Ms. McCabe's house. I mean, that was the purpose of the timeline, to help you with that interview?
No, that wasn't the purpose of the timeline.
You used it for that purpose, though, obviously.
We did not. I was at Jen's house making a timeline, and the two officers showed up to interview her. I just happened to be there.
Right. And when they interviewed you, did you have that timeline in front of you? That's my question.
No, I did not.
Okay. But you had just created it along with Jennifer McCabe.
Some of it.
Okay. And then it was after that that this timeline was coordinated between the two of you, that you actually told your second story to Trooper Prince. And when I say second story, I mean the second time you were interviewed on February 1st as opposed to January 29th. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you ever become aware of text messages that Jennifer McCabe was sending to others in a group chat talking about you in that interview?
No.
You were never told or became aware that she sent text messages to a group as she listened in on your interview?
No. I don't think she could listen in. She wasn't anywhere near me.
You weren't aware that or are you aware as you sit here that she sent a text message that said she's telling them everything, all the stuff?
Sustained.
Have you ever been provided a text message or told about a text message that perhaps Jennifer McCabe was sending to a group?
No.
Listening to your suggesting that she was listening to your interview?
No.
The third time you told your story was later that night in a telephonic interview. Is that right? With Trooper Proctor?
I requested to speak to Trooper Proctor because I had remembered the very first time I spoke with Karen that morning, and I wanted to make sure it was recorded.
Okay. That wasn't my question. My question was, did you have another telephonic conversation with Trooper Proctor, yes or no?
You said that night, but it wasn't that night.
When was it?
I think it was earlier that day.
Okay. Meaning, but it was after the interview with Trooper Prince?
I don't think so.
Think it was beforehand?
I think it was beforehand.
You were still with Jennifer McCabe when that call took place, correct?
I was in her house. I was not with her. I stepped away to speak to him by myself.
In her home at 12 Country Lane.
Correct.
Who else was with you other than Jennifer McCabe in the house?
Her sister was there writing down the timeline for
Who's
us.
that?
Her sister, Denise.
Denise? So she was scribing the timeline as you and Jennifer McCabe were creating it?
She was writing it down as we were remembering things.
Right. And the three of you were doing this together, sort of communally.
Yes.
She would say something, then you would say something, then it would spark something that she would say, and back and forth, correct?
Yes.
How is it that Trooper Proctor got a hold of you? Did you call him or did he call you?
I think he was on the phone with Jen, and I asked to speak to him.
So Trooper Proctor got a hold of you through talking to Jen McCabe.
Well, I asked to speak to him, but yes.
Right. Was that interview recorded, to your knowledge?
I don't know.
The fourth time you met with police was February 2nd, the very next day, at about 12:08 p.m. Is that right?
I don't remember.
Do you remember signing a consent form for your phone?
Yes.
Was that the next day after this interview with Trooper Prince and Trooper
I don't know
Keith?
what day it was. It was right after Karen was arraigned for the first time. Jen and I met with them and both handed our phones over willingly.
So you've just answered my question. So when you met with police, whatever the date was, it was a few days later, you met with police. You had a fourth time, you were still in the presence of Jennifer McCabe when you met with police.
Yes.
And handed your phone over, is that right?
Yes.
And she handed her phone over, is that right?
Yes.
And the two of you were together when you signed your consent forms, is that right?
Yes.
The fifth time you told your story was in front of a grand jury, is that right?
I don't know.
Do you remember testifying in front of a grand jury?
I do.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Before you testified at that grand jury, just physically, you were brought into an anteroom where you waited to be called by ADA Adam Lally, correct?
Yes.
Who was in that anteroom with you just before you gave your testimony?
My husband and Jen and Matt McCabe.
So Jennifer McCabe was with you yet again just before you gave official testimony under oath concerning this case and concerning the incident.
Correct.
Ms. Roberts, when was the last time you've spoken to Jennifer McCabe before you testified in this trial?
In this morning.
Did you discuss your testimony?
No.
So you and Ms. McCabe, who became friends because of this incident,
Correct.
talked as recently as this morning before your testimony.
Correct.
And your testimony now is that you did not discuss anything about what you're doing here
No.
or what you're going
I
to
did
testify
not. She
to.
called to wish me good luck today.
When did you talk to her the last time before this morning?
I don't know, maybe a couple days ago? I don't remember.
Within days of you taking the stand yesterday, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever... May I have this one?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts, I'm going to ask you to take a look at, actually, let me ask it a different way. Did you say that you did or did not recall texting with Jen McCabe during the course of that January 29th interview with state police? Do you recall that or no?
No.
Okay.
During the interview, I didn't text anybody.
Okay. Are you saying you didn't text anybody, or you don't recall?
I don't recall. I don't think I wouldn't be texting somebody if I was being interviewed by the state police.
Right. Okay, would it refresh your recollection to take a look at a report of text messages?
Sure.
May I approach you?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, may I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Take a look. There's two tabs. Take a look at the tabs and the data across the two tabs, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in no rush. So, may I?
Yes.
Take this back. Well, for information, Mr. Brennan,
Okay. Jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch if you'd like. And I forgot to tell you, anytime we're at sidebar, please feel free to stand up and stretch, okay?
That was quicker than we thought, Judge. May
Okay.
I proceed?
Yes.
Okay. Did you take a look at this document?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection that there were two text messages at around the time of your interview with those two troopers?
No.
Do you recall, as you sit here, texting Miss McCabe that the state troopers were arriving or they're just getting there?
No.
Do you recall Miss McCabe texting you anything back about calling me after?
No.
Okay. Did you, in fact, different question, did you, in fact, call Miss McCabe right after the interview and talk to her?
I don't know.
Have you ever testified that at the scene, Miss Reed was seated in the back of a patrol car along with Jennifer McCabe, and you were standing just outside the car, and there was an interaction among the three of you?
Yes.
Have you ever testified, or have you ever stated, in any particular, that during that interaction, Karen asked the three of you to pray?
Yes.
Have you ever said or testified that during that interaction where you're seated, where they are seated in the back of the patrol car and Miss Reed asked you to pray, that Miss Reed said to Jennifer McCabe, Google hypothermia?
No.
You've never said that.
I've never said that.
You testified at the grand jury on April 26th. Is that right? April 26th, 2022?
I do not know.
Right? Does that sound right? April 26th, 2022?
I have no idea.
Late April 2022, does that sound right?
I don't know. It was 2022.
You testified under oath, correct?
Yes.
Swore the same oath that you swore here.
Yes.
Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under penalty of perjury. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is it your testimony that you have never said that Karen told Jen to Google hypothermia, or that you don't recall saying that?
I don't recall saying that.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at portion of your grand jury testimony from that day?
It might.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure. And if you could read on to page 83 as well.
Yep. I testified. I didn't hear it, but I was told that she was asked to Google it.
You testified under oath at the grand jury that at some point Karen was in back of the police cruiser, correct?
Yep.
Objection.
No, I'll allow that question.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what you told the grand jury?
Yes.
And isn't it true that at some point during the course of your testimony under oath, you said that Karen was in the back of the police cruiser?
Yes.
And then you went on to describe that Karen and Jen and I were standing outside, and she made us all start holding hands and starting to pray.
Yes.
I mean, the she being Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
And at this point, they had lifted John up and taken him onto the gurney, correct? That's
I don't
what you
know.
described.
I don't recall.
Okay. I'm going to do this again, just so we're clear. May I approach?
Yes.
Sure. Thank you. Just a portion of the bottom of the page.
At the bottom?
At the bottom, last couple of paragraphs.
Okay. Yep. I say I think, so I'm not
I have
positive.
a question for you.
Okay.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. And you testified basically that you think, at least that's what you were telling the grand jurors, that you
Yep.
think that was the point at which they lifted John up
Yes.
and moved him into the ambulance, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
And then you were asked a question, what, if anything, did she, Miss Reed, ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, correct?
Objection.
Do you recall that?
I did not hear the question about Google being asked.
That's not my question. May I ask? May I inquire?
Just repeat that question.
Sure. Isn't it true that you were next asked by Mr. Lally in front of the grand jury, quote, what, if anything, did she, Miss Reed, ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, end quote. Do you remember being asked that question?
No.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So if you look at lines 16 through 18.
Okay.
May I?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection? That was the question that you were asked?
Yes.
Okay. And in response to that question, you stated, quote, at one point she asked her to Google hypothermia and how long Google hypothermia. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
That was very detailed. You'll agree that that's a very detailed and specific recount of an event. You recounted where you were, back of a cruiser, or they were in the back of a cruiser, correct?
Yep.
You recorded or reported the time. It was right around the time that you thought they were lifting John up and scooped him up onto the gurney, correct?
Yep. I thought it was about that time. I wasn't sure.
Location,
I'm sorry, I didn't get that answer. You were talking over each other.
that's my mistake.
What was your answer, Ms. Roberts?
I thought it was about the time they lifted him up, but I wasn't sure.
Okay. You were very detailed about who was there. It was you. It was Jen. It was my client, Karen
Yes.
Reed, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
You were so detailed that you talked about where you were standing next to the cruiser open door, correct?
Yes.
What the others were doing, holding hands and praying, is that right?
Yes.
And the actual words used. You were as detailed about all of that as the actual words used. She asked her to Google hypothermia and how long, and then you stopped, Google hypothermia, end quote, correct?
Correct.
You will agree, at least for that purpose, you painted a very, very detailed picture in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
Yeah.
Except it's not true, is it?
I did not hear her ask that. I was told she was asked that. In
The
the
answer to my question, Ms. Roberts, and I'm not a trick question, what you told the grand jurors was not true. You never heard her, my client, ask anyone to Google anything, did you?
I did not.
And yet, that's what you testified to under oath, under penalty of perjury, in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
I did.
And the reason you did that, the reason that you said that false statement, was because someone told you to say it, correct?
Object.
Is that, I'm going to let her answer that.
Nobody told me to say it. I knew it happened at that time,
How did you
which
know
is
it
why I
happened?
said it.
How did you know it happened, Miss Roberts, if no one told you it happened?
Because we wrote a timeline. We already spoke about
So
that.
the timeline that Jennifer McCabe helped you with, that influenced your testimony in front of the grand jury, correct? Obviously.
I was telling what happened in the back of the
Ms. Roberts,
cruiser.
The timeline
can answer.
you wrote,
So when you ask a question, let her answer, okay?
the timeline you wrote, with Jennifer McCabe's help, influenced your testimony to testify in front of the grand jurors to a statement that you never heard, correct?
Yes.
You were later asked about that statement in another investigation, by another investigator or set of investigators, correct?
I don't know.
Were you interviewed by a different law enforcement agency, a separate law enforcement agency from the Massachusetts State Police at any time?
Yes.
And you were told that to lie to those agents would be a crime, correct?
Yes.
Punishable by prison, correct?
I was not told that.
They asked you whether or not you heard Karen Reed ever say anything to Jennifer McCabe about Googling anything, correct?
I don't know.
Isn't it true that you told them what you've just now told us, which is, I did not hear Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to conduct any Google searches?
I don't recall.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at a copy of that interview and that report?
Sure.
I know where it is. Can I approach?
Yes.
take a look at the entire document, just to familiarize yourself with it, if you don't mind, including the front page. And don't answer anything about the document until I ask you a question, if you don't mind, please.
Sure.
Becky. Ms. Roberts, do you recognize that as being a report of an interview that you conducted?
I've never seen this before, but
Understood. Yeah, you may never have seen it, but does it remind you that that's
Yes.
a report of a conversation you had with another law enforcement
Yes.
agency? I'm going to ask you to turn to page 7 of that report. And if you look, there's a small paragraph, about 2 paragraphs up from the bottom. I think I may have put a little blue dot by it, but I'm not sure. Please read that to yourself.
correct.
Done?
Yep.
Thank you. May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts. Ms. Roberts, does that refresh your recollection about what you told these investigators?
Yes.
And what you told them was you, quote, did not hear Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to conduct any Google
That is
search.
correct.
And you went on to say you saw McCabe on her phone.
I'll allow it.
You saw McCabe on her phone, but you did not hear Karen ask Jennifer to Google anything.
Correct.
So what you told the grand jurors was, in fact, false.
I misunderstood Mr. Lally's question.
Got it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.